go. Dubois Akin, good morning from my
Good
side
morning.
of the good afternoon to yours.
Yeah. Good afternoon, good morning, all the different times.
Just happy day. Happy Monday.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
so glad to have you with us and get to know you. You guys, what a privilege it is to hear from this, I will say, Renaissance man this morning. He is a creative producer and art director, choreographer, filmmaker. He is now an author. I think it's on pre-order called I Think, or just Think. Think. Oh man, yeah. Dubois, would you introduce us, give us the backstory of, if you wouldn't mind starting, especially with your backstory with dance, but now it's traveled and molded into many other things, it sounds like. So go for it. Tell us who you are.
Yeah. Life is one, and I always say life is one big improvisation or one big dance. My name's Dubois Akin. I'm originally from Albany, Georgia, a small town, or it's not even a small town, it's a metropolitan town, but it feels small town compared to New York. But originally from there, I started kind of formal training as a dancer at 19. Grew up around the arts. I was primarily kind of a singer growing up, in choir and chorus, and then, show choir and gospel choir, was really on a music track. And then in my junior college there, I got into this show, Midsummer Night's Dream, and there's a ballet in there, and so I had to take a ballet class. And so and I always had this love affair with dance, and so I took that class and fell in love with it, and snuck and changed my major to dance, and for the next year was just dance. And then snuck away and auditioned for Florida State University. Got into that school after a year of kind of formal training, which was insane. Ended up getting basically a full ride. Studied there, fought to continue my education there as the first kind of MFA student to go straight from undergrad into graduate school through that institution. Went for a summer at ADF, met a lot of incredible faculty, teachers and stuff, and then by virtue of that, ended up coming to New York on a grant, got a job, started touring the world for 5 years and performing, choreographing, singing, whatever. And literally the minute I touched down in New York, and this from, I'm assuming, spending any amount of time in New York or LA or cities like that, all the arts in some way are kind of interconnected. And so this thing leads to that. And, the short version is that I started getting heavily involved in photography and modeling, and then film, and, I got married after just a year of living in New York. My wife and I's story is a whole other epic thing, which we won't even get into because we'll be here all day. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
We met when we were super young, college, we reconnected, and then got married, whatever. So that's a whole other thing. But after we got married, we always knew we wanted to start a business together. So we started this production company and creative agency. And through that company, we, do all the things that we do now. So dance was kind of the vehicle to get me to a lot of these other things in terms of filmmaking, producing, even authorship. We do all of those things through the production company, my wife and I. And so I'm kind of just sprinkled all over the place. Amazing. A little bit.
Yeah, so can you tell us about how you decided to move into, obviously you had already had this, it sounds like a seed of a dream from a long time ago that's now growing and bearing fruit. It was with your wife, but the production aspect. So going from dance and probably gigging in that way in a lot of ways to I'm going to start a company, and it's going to be particularly around film, it sounds like, and branding, helping other people push their story out.
Yeah. So Akin Brand is an LLC. It's a production company, creative agency, and we primarily work in film, fashion, and dance. So our client base goes anywhere from, and it creates a really kind of wide pool of clients. So we have everything from on the agency side, a law firm that we consult with in LA, where we help them with their rebranding, logo design. 35-year-old company, but they were trying to like innovate, think about a new face for the company. So we them, and then other clients like doing live theater. So we're in contract with a Chicago-based dance company where we're building work with them, more kind of in the traditional proscenium theater space, and also imagining what a film aspect to that work could look like. So we did a short feature that we put out, and that can be viewed on Vimeo and things like that. And then other smaller, maybe like startup entrepreneurial ventures. We help a lot with branding, messaging frameworks, thinking about how to translate the value they're bringing to the marketplace, and consulting around that. And just to give a little bit more frame of reference, my wife has a history in retail fashion, but she's also a biologist. So she's kind of like brilliant mind. And I also, coming from like a dance background, but also heavy in terms of like directing and choreographing, and all of those things kind of inform how we've weaved all of our assets together to kind of form this agency. And to your question, I guess specifically about the transition from dance to film, while I was working with the company that I danced with for 5 years and touring the world and things, I always knew that I wanted to have a sense of autonomy. And I always knew that I wanted to, I always had a slight aversion to the 501c3 non-for-profit model. Because I saw the kind of barriers that I perceived that it put on companies. And by virtue of growing up in ministry, and I've always been really close in proximity to the non-for-profit sector, and the 501c3 particularly, that model. And so I knew at the point that my wife and I were dreaming about starting this company, we knew that we were most clear about the fact that we didn't want to go that route. Like we wanted to, but we were also a little bit at a threshold because we did want to do philanthropic work. And the only way that I had ever really seen that done in a robust way in close proximity was through this 501c3 model. And so that was a little bit of the tension early on, was like, how do we do extravagant giving and philanthropic work in a for-profit model? Like, how do we be in business and not be capitalistic, so those were some of the tensions. And I think that, that's something that you have to learn. And so we did a lot of research, we did a lot of reading, we did a lot of consulting with brilliant minds, David Jones, Will Adewasi. David Jones is an entrepreneur, music maker, Renaissance man of his own right out of New Orleans. And then Will Adewasi is started a watch company called Vitae London, which is huge, backed by Richard Branson and, Pharrell Williams, Michelle Williams. So we had those people in our corner kind of helping us think through, what is this for-profit model? And how to best position ourselves so that we can still do this philanthropic work while being in this for-profit model. And then just to the film, this is a very long answer, but the film component, I think, was just birthed out of what is the best way we can tell these stories, and what is the best way we can help capture the essence of the brands and companies we work with. And I think that film, I think T.D. Jakes said it, but he was like, if Jesus was in present day life, he would be a filmmaker. Because of his ability to storytell. And I think that film allows you to bring a lot of different elements together.
For sure.
And express those things. So it just felt like a natural progression for us, really, because we do a lot of different things, and it helps us kind of have a landing place.
Are you behind the camera a bunch, or are you collaborating with camera artists, and are you directing? Oh, both. Okay.
Yeah, so most of the work that I do in film is or has been on the writing, producing, and directing side.
Yeah.
Early on, I was in front of the camera a bunch in terms of because I was working in a really niche way, like it was mostly dance film.
Yes, yeah.
And then that turned into, you know, the film industry is also one of those things, kind of like the dance world. Like once you get into one pocket, things just start to open up. So initially I started again, kind of in the dance film specific world.
Yeah.
And then that got me introduced to other filmmakers. So then it was like serialized content in terms of dramedies and comedies. And then it was into non-scripted and producing from for like non-scripted, everything from like a game show to a talk show. So, you know, it's kind of like branched off into a lot of different areas, but a lot of my work is really on the producing, writing, and then some directing here lately side. So creating content.
So fun. You have embraced it all, which I love.
Yeah.
Including, so you said that dance was the vehicle for your authorship now. We're going to talk a little bit more about your book at the end as well. You guys giving us, I guess they're on pre-order, so they're not actually released yet.
No. They are released. Yeah.
They're released.
They're available. They're out in the world. People have them all around the world.
Come on. I love the tagline. I don't have it in front of me, so can you say it?
Think I am whatever I think.
I am whatever I think.
Yeah.
So
it's based on, it's based off of the scripture, the thought of, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. So, so we, my wife actually dreamed this book up. So the
That's so cool.
kind of core tagline, I guess, if you want to call it that, for our Keen brand, our mantra really is think, be, live keenly. So it's about a keen, not my name, Akeen, but a keen approach to our thinking, our being, our living in the world. If you can think it, you can be it, you can live it. That's kind of the approach. And so, I think 3 years ago, maybe now, shortly after we launched the company, we were kind of initially in a kind of this blogging merch niche space. You know, we were still kind of trying to find our legs with the company and how to really make it make sense to people, because it was like, man, we do all these things, how does this make sense to the world? How does this translate to the world? And so and we always were, my wife's a heavy writer, and I have like journals as far back as when I was like 12, like full from page to page. So writing has always just been a part of my life. And so we knew we wanted to put out a book, and we were really, with that first one, the vision was clear, but we were really just trying to get our feet wet. Like we knew that we needed to take that first step. And so Think became that, and we literally wrote it, that initial draft of it, over dinner at a Japanese restaurant in Hell's Kitchen. Like one night we were like, because we had been doing a lot of research on different types of books, and we were looking at coffee table books, or, you know, biographies, or picture books, photo books. So we were looking at a lot of different style formats for books, and we landed on one, and we were like, let's just crank this out. So we wrote the initial draft and manuscript, or draft, I should say. And then over the next 2 years or so, it was really thinking about what the best route for publishing was. And we were coming up against some walls with that early on, because it was just a learning process. Like, what's the right publishing company? You know, should we self-publish? You know, and eventually we connected with the right publisher, and were able to, you know, get the right edit and format, and then, you know, then we started working on cover art, and then, you know, it became what it was. We released it on New Year's Day last year, 2019. Yeah, 2019, I think, actually. I can't remember, but somewhere around there, or maybe it was the first day of 2020, something in that realm. But we released it, and you know, for pre-order initially, and then it was out, and now it's out in the world, and people have ordered it, and yeah.
I look forward to reading it. I honestly have it on my list now, so.
Oh, great! Yeah.
I'm all about it. I'm so about, especially I think, even just having these interviews, for example, right? We're talking about, with dancers specifically, how to take back the year. But for me now, it's turning into, how can I help my community go, hey,
so important.
Where did you decide to get small, and just like even like it takes 21 days to form a habit, right? We've formed a lot of habits around isolation and, making sure we follow the rules, but at the same time, life isn't always all about following the rules. I'm like, what kind of parties are you gonna throw? If it needs to be socially distanced, great, but like make it a good one, and like be funny, you know what I mean? So I think it's all about mindset right now. Like what you are, like clearly an example of someone who believed he could, who thought he could, the engine that could, you know?
Yeah.
So fun. So that kind of leads me to the next question I wanted to ask you. You mentioned the 501c3 thing. I would love to hear you specifically speak to our audience, our dance audience, about what you believe and what you think about for the dancers, in the sense, like all my research has said, it consistently is the lowest paid art form still, and yet it's your body as your instrument. It's a lot of work, so it's amazing that we're still there. I would love to just hear you talk to us about how to shift into an entrepreneurial mindset or a monetizing mindset, because for me that was a huge hurdle, because I was just gigging and just being, thankful for what I got.
Yeah. Man, it's such a loaded question. I think that the first thing I would say is, and this sounds so cliche, but we have to, as dance artists, really become aware of our worth. And there are few other art forms. There are other career paths that are very embodied. Construction workers, athletes. In terms of the arts, dance is one of it's the most embodied. It's the first language. The body is the first communicator in a lot of ways. It's invaluable what we bring as storytellers, as creatives, as artists, and getting clear. And often that clarity, in my experience, comes from outside sources. And it sounds terrible. Not sounds terrible. It's very conflicting, because it's like, man, I should know what my own worth is. But it wasn't really until my wife, Camry is her name, Camry Akeem, really started to reflect back to me, babe, you're putting out this. Why are you being asked to do it for this? These menial fees that you're being, and it's not to bash anyone that I've ever worked with or anything like that, but it is to say, and a lot of the organizations in terms of the dance world, from companies to choreographers to institutions, are really doing the best that they can. Absolutely. Because they're operating also in this economic system, also in these models that are, I think, in a lot of ways archaic, that need to have innovation and that need to be refurbished and reimagined and reformed. Like the dance world needs reform. Like it's incredible the things that I was asked to do for the pay that I was getting.
Sure.
And
same.
And so anyway, all of that
That's
to
great.
say, the first part is really understanding worth and looking at other models, looking at other industries and saying, how are they respecting their artists or their workers or their colleagues or, whatever bracket they fall in. Yeah. And then again, second to that, I think that we have to take ownership.
Sure.
There has to be ownership. You have to have some level of autonomy.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just gig, or work with a company and that be your only source. Any other industry or people who are thriving in the world, we see it, we've read it, some of us, multiple streams of income.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And really getting unprecious and demystifying this, like, the romanticized starving artist thing. Like, I was always like, I'm not gonna be a starving artist. If I gotta starve, I won't do it. Like, you know, like, it's ridiculous. It's not, it doesn't make you a greater artist. It actually is very traumatizing. It doesn't feed your art. Like, that, it's not, it doesn't. And we've built a capacity to suffer as artists. And so there has to be an undoing of that. It's like, no, I'm actually worth getting paid well. I'm actually worth having all of my needs met. And we don't, it's like, and this sounds crazy, but it was like, I'm telling you, my wife would be like, what do you mean they're not paying for every meal you eat? You are dancing, like, that's your fuel. Like, if a truck driver if his profession is a truck driver, he's not paying for his own gas.
Right.
Like, you know, like, it's absurd, you know? And so anyway, these are just things that you learn over time, I guess. But I think it's also through transparency. It's also through having artists be transparent about what they've learned, you know? And so I always try to be very vocal about the things that I've learned. And it's so many different ways into the dance world. Like, I was working in the concert dance world heavy for, like I said, about 5 years, touring and stuff like that. And then I started working in opera, and then I started working in film, and I'm seeing how they pay people, and I'm like, for literally a fraction of the work. Like, in the concert dance world, it's like life or death, give it your all, like blood, sweat, and tears, emotional trauma, like bring it all to the table, bring your full self, and we're gonna pay you $5 an hour or something, you know? And then I got to the opera world, and it was like, yes, you're gonna only have an hour. At an hour, we're gonna ask you to actually leave the space, because this is a union project, and we're going to pay you quadruple the amount. And I'm like, and you know, there are different scenarios, like, obviously but even so again, it's this undoing. Like, I've had to undo even the paying your dues part. I think that there is a reality of that. And on some level, it's not right either. So anyway, there's a lot. I could talk about this part all day. This could have been the one question of the interview, but I think that autonomy, ownership, knowing your worth, those are the big pieces. And so in terms of how to monetize, I think that dancers have to look at all the assets we have. Improvisation is a mentality, not just a movement practice.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
The ability to flow, go, think on the spot, manifest a thing, create, that is a mode of being in the world. And that's an asset that you bring to the table, whether it's on the stage, in the classroom, in the studio, or working on site in other ways. And also not feeling bad about doing other things to support your art making. Any business owner does that. Steve Jobs was doing all different types of things to support his art, to support what was his art, his making. You know, the great people. So I think that
well said.
Really taking inventory of your assets and saying, what are the other things that I know how to do well, and how are those skills transferable to the marketplace beyond the dance world? And then starting to consult with people, ask questions. Like, there are people who are doing it. You are one of them. I'm one of them. Reach out, ask questions. How did you do it? What is a LLC versus it being incorporated versus a 501c3? What is the best route? ask questions. And most of the time I've experienced people will give you 30 minutes for free, an hour for free, you know, a coffee meeting for free, and just go from there and bounce around, get as much information, read, look at other sectors, how are they doing it, and then see what those principles are and how they're transferable.
Right. So good. I mean, all of the things. I felt like almost crying a little bit, you know what I mean? It's so validating to hear. It's just validating to hear. That's it. So
it's a big deal.
Yeah, when you said it's traumatizing, I was like, no one's ever said that before.
No, really, it is trauma. I mean,
for sure.
I'll refrain from telling some stories, but like when I think back on some of the things I was asked to do and that I did willingly, thinking that I was just a serious artist.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about like abuse or anything, you know, like having to sleep with somebody or something like that, but I'm talking about, it's not just those things that are abusive and that are traumatizing. Being asked, I'm going to share this story. I was literally on tour, working crazy hours, and I was asked to sleep on a couch for 2 weeks. For a week, maybe it was a week or 2 weeks, whatever. And it wasn't until my wife, and I didn't tell anybody about it because I'm like, oh, whatever, like there's not enough beds in the Airbnb, this is fine, I'll take the couch, like it's no big deal. You know, I'm just thinking like, yeah, this is no big deal. Like I'm on tour, this is incredible, we're making great art. And it wasn't until my wife was like, you're sleeping on a couch? And then I brought it, and literally my back went out. I've never been injured really as a dancer in 10 years of working. My back went into spasm. I had to go get a massage. Like it was like, all right, am I going to be able to perform all these different things? It was at that point that they were like, okay, let's get you a hotel room. Yeah. So we're not talking about just emotional trauma. We're talking about physical trauma. We're talking about, honestly, like life or death on some level, because at the point that if this was my only route and I'm just a dancer and I can't perform, I can't work, I can't pay my bills, you know, if I didn't have other things in place. Sure. Yeah. Those kinds of things are unacceptable. It really honestly just is. And I think that on some level, we can try to work it in our mind to make it be fine. Like, no, this is fine. Like, and if I signed up knowing that they didn't have the ability to do better, that's one thing. Yeah. But they immediately were like, we'll pay for your massage, we'll pay for the insurance, we'll pay for the hotel room. Well, so that means that you had the ability the whole time, you know, but it wasn't until crisis and until my wife was like, what do you mean, that I was able to, you know, whatever. So I think that, no, it's great. And it's not, you know, it's just learning, and it's not to bash anyone I've ever worked with, and I won't even say who it was, but I'm just saying. Yeah. It's just what as you're talking, I'm going, oh my gosh, like we really do have like a generational, like a lineage that we actually have to, like you said, the undoing of. And I think being just conscious of that and then learning how to be respectful in it and honoring, but also we're going to move in a different direction. Yeah. We love you, honor you. We're going to raise the bar now. Thank you so much for everything you've done, everything you've taught us. Now we're going to shift into what's honestly the best, most honoring thing to do, even for you as our leader or as our teacher, which is honor ourselves, right? Yep. So good. Huge. It kind of leads me into wanting to hear from you, honestly, because of the mind that you carry. You said I never wanted to be broke, which I think that worth and value, actually, ironically, this is like generally my course, like is worth and its value. And then we talk about budget and what you should actually expect to make, which no one teaches dancers. That's just in general. I went to school for dance as well. It's like, why didn't we talk about this? Because I've seen way too many
beautiful artists, beautiful movers that spend like literally their whole childhood and their college degree. And then they try after college, but because the model and the system are broken, they believe that there's not a way for them to continue. And so they just go into whatever they go into, totally different vocations. And yet their instrument, it has been finely tuned and now it's no longer in use, you know? It's just heartbreaking.
Yeah.
I would love to hear you talk about, like, just even if it's brief, we're moving into a very uncertain economy. And a lot of teachers are going online, but even some of the best artists, like studios are straight up shutting down. And I don't want to get all depressed, like, oh. But like,
Yeah.
what's the best way for us to, I mean, you already touched on it, but just in light of 2020, contextually, like,
Yeah.
how can we go, what's a really good focus point for us right now to position ourselves with grounding and anchoring, you know, even strategy or practicality for finances, but obviously even creativity or whatever, adaptation, you know?
Yeah. I don't know what the best way is, and I don't think it's one route. I think that the ways that I'm thinking about it. So we wrote our first book, we're halfway through the manuscript for our second book, B.
Mm.
I say that to say, you are not just a dancer, and we cannot be precious about titles and identity labels because you're more than a dancer. What are the other things? And I know that literally even for me, there was a point where I would have physical, like almost like shakes if someone didn't acknowledge me or inappropriately acknowledge me, or if they inappropriately acknowledge me as a dancer, or if they didn't it didn't feel like they were honoring that I was a dancer, you know? They would be like, oh, you're a singer, right? Because people knew me as a singer. I'm like, no, I'm a dancer, you know, because I fought so hard to even become a dancer. Yeah. It was not my path, you know, whatever. So, but we get so precious about that identity label, that we don't allow ourselves to manifest beyond that and to move and to transcend the label and really be in our authentic identity, which is multiplicitous, which is multidimensional. And so I think that in context of 2020, what we're being forced to do is say, who else am I? What else can I do? What more than this one thing do I bring to the table? And I think that there are ways to still leverage dance. Like, everyone's not going to teach an e-course. People were asking me out the wazoo from day one, can you teach an e-course? Can you do like an online class? And I was just like, I don't see it for myself. Like, I said no to so many incredible people and so many incredible institutions. And I was like, God, I hope that wasn't a bridge burned. But I just didn't see that being the place where I was able to add most value, nor did I see it as worth what I was being, you know, again, back to worth. Like, oh, we'll pay you $100 to sweat in your living room and try to make this choreo. You know, I'm just like, I can't, you know, like I'm happy to sit down and talk and do a lecture, whatever. But so if it's not, but for some people, that's the route. It's teaching online classes, doing private lessons. Yeah. I would say start to archive your own journey. There are not enough books in the world. I know you're like, everybody, you know, there's so many books. No one wants to read my story. Archive your own journey. Track what lessons you've learned. That's a book.
Yeah.
Like, it's a book. Produce it. You can self-publish, put it out on Amazon. Yeah. That's a stream of income. Totally. Start a blog. Start a vlog. I don't know, start something and build a platform and start creating there. See if you get some traction. If that doesn't work, what are the other skill sets that you have? What is reach out to your institution that you graduated from. Hey, I don't know if you all need it or not. I'd be happy to come and speak to the class about what it means, life after college. Leverage your net that works. Like, start to be and build a net that works. Yeah. You know, and yeah, I'll stop there because you said brief. But I think it's about really taking inventory,
Yeah.
writing down what are 10 different, Google, what are 10 different ways I can leverage my skill set? And when you find that information out, maybe no one's done that work. Do an e-course on that. Here are 10 different ways and make it available. You know, my wife released her birth plan. We did our birth plan for my daughter when she was born. She put it out online as a resource on our website. And it wasn't about making money. It was about making it available to people. She put it out online, and for Black women, she gave it for free. And for anyone that was not a Black woman, man, woman, whomever, that wasn't a Black woman, she charged $1, I think.
Yeah.
And she just put it out. And there were over like 100 or something downloads of that file.
Yeah, that's so fun.
There are things, and the money she gave away. So it wasn't about the money, but what I'm saying is that there are things that you have, experiences that you have that are life lessons that would be treasured to someone else.
Yeah.
You just have to do that digging.
Yeah.
You know, and if you're a believer, pray. Like, God, what are the things that I have that I can leverage? Holy Spirit wants to assist you.
Ask, right. That's so good. So our time is wrapping, but I feel like we did actually cover a lot.
I talk so much. I'm so sorry. I'm like, oh, this is so good.
That's the point. I want to hear you talk. But the question that I want to finish with is, how would you, it's obviously going to not even go into nearly as much as like you would want to for one of our audience members. But right now, if we were starting our branding right now, if we realized that as a dancer, I'm also a brand now in these days and times, how would you just go, hey, what are the first major steps to start creating and thinking about your brand? What are some practical steps? Because
what's your why?
Sure. Yeah.
What's your why, and how can you frame that in a way that turns your vision into value for the marketplace? What are you bringing to the table? Not that's unique, because nothing you're bringing is unique, I assure you. As much as we want to, like, nothing we do is unique at a King brand.
Yeah.
What we do is do it from our perspective, and that adds maybe a twist on it and maybe makes it unique.
Yeah.
But don't be precious about, oh, I got to bring something different. It's like, this is what you do if you're a dancer.
Yeah.
Why do you want to do it? Why do you want to bring this to the marketplace? And your why can be because I need to have income during this recession and this global pandemic.
Yeah.
That's a good enough why. That's plenty. And then from that point, start to think about what are the missing pieces what are the things you don't have in place in order to do that? A basic website, use Squarespace. If you want to have a logo, there's all kinds of assets from Canva to Logo Creator, like Google it. Easy apps to make a logo if you want to do that. Start to put out material that expresses what you do, whether it's dance videos, if you want to go live, once a week and do an improv or a class. Help people see you as someone who knows what they're talking about in this sphere of influence or in this sector.
Yeah.
I mean, those are 3 easy ways you could literally immediately start.
Yeah.
And also you can say, like, take inventory, like, hey, y'all, I've been thinking about online a post or whatever. People love this kind of stuff. I've been thinking about starting a brand. I know most of you know me. I went to school and graduated from college with a dance degree, blah, blah, blah. What do you all think about that? Take a poll. That's market research.
Sure. Totally.
Instagram. And then, like I said, connecting with the communities that you already have in terms of local communities or studios you studied at, colleges, etc.
Right, where you have relational equity, where you have relational value. Super practical, but honestly super good advice. Wow, thank you for your time.
Yes, this is great. I truly, truly enjoyed it. I always love unpacking this stuff and being
Yeah.
able to hopefully add value. So it was a
Oh
blessing.
my gosh.
Thank you.
We need your e-course on how to make money as a dancer. Okay. So I'm just saying, I know you don't want to make one, but the reality is I think you carry a really, yeah, a strong thing there because I don't hear people talk about it enough.
That's the other thing is that we don't have to be the initiators of all the things. We can leverage other people's platforms. So you just keep bringing me back and we'll have a money talk.
Okay, we'll have money
But
talk.
then I don't have to do it.
Yeah,
You know,
totally.
it doesn't have to be me.
I will do that in a heartbeat with you. I will do that in a heartbeat with you. You
Yeah.
guys, all the links are in there. If you're joining our Facebook challenge, which is 3 days, you will be available to receive his first iteration, his first book, Think I Am Whatever I Think. Is that right? Okay, working on your tagline. And don't miss out on that. I mean, guys, obviously sit under this waterfall. So go check out what he's doing. And like if you're working on branding yourself right now or trying to create creative monetization ideas for you, go look at his website and go see what he's up to and how he tells his story. Yeah, look at other people that he's working with and go, oh my gosh, I can do that too. You're such an inspiration, Sarah. We appreciate you. We bless you and yours, your wifey, your babies. I don't know if there's multiple babies involved. Just one. Okay, cool. Just one.
Yeah.
Thank you again so much for your time. Such a privilege.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Peace. Bye.